Wanted to bring this back. This is from usatoday.com. Back in October 18th, 2024, the headline it reads, it says, how a horrible perfect storm fueled a 65% increase in homicides committed by kids.
Since the start of the pandemic in 2020 and the end of the lockdowns, we have really seen a disturbing rise in gun violence across the country. And it really seems to have affected cities big and small all over the country. For many years, we had been seeing a decline in gun violence, although it remains a terrible problem in this country. But the last couple of years, it has been a really significant rise in 2020 and then again in 2021 in the Midwest. Chicago, Milwaukee, Baltimore, St. Louis, those cities have seen some pretty dramatic increases. By virtually every measure, the United States has gun violence that is just wildly disproportionate to other countries. There's this perception, which is accurate, that there are a whole heck of a lot of guns in the United States. And statistically speaking, we know that the more guns there are in a society, the more shootings occur. The really important thing to keep in perspective is that even though the numbers are up, and it's terrible to see this, the rates of gun violence, of gun death, are not as high as they were in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Gun violence had been moderated for the past 10, 20 years. And this is a real shock to see these numbers climbing as rapidly as they have been in the past couple of years. The activists I've talked to say that a lot of the contribution has come from social media. When you had people locked in their houses, all they were doing was posting online. That had very real consequences because people would pick fights with each other. And then once the lockdowns were being lifted, people started meeting up to settle those scores. Driving that even further was you had more guns on the street because people had used their stimulus checks to buy guns in a way that they had not been able to do so before. And then you had the increase in the sort of large capacity magazines and a number of different devices on those guns that allowed people to shoot more quickly. So instead of a drive-by shooting in which 1 or 2 people were hurt, you had a drive-by shooting in which 5 people or 10 people were hurt. At the federal level, President Biden just pushed forward new regulations aimed at cracking down on what they call these ghost guns. And those are guns that are assembled at home from parts you buy over the internet or you modify yourself. And those are guns that can't be traced, can't be tracked. That's why they're called ghost guns. But at the local level, a lot of the activists I've talked to said we really need to be approaching this in a holistic or systemic way, asking the question, why do people feel like settling scores with guns is the right approach? And finding ways to get people support, get them jobs, make them feel like valued members of our society.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth, and double salutations to all you Akim out there laboring in the house of David, the elect, that's pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom to you, brothers, and shalom to the elect. I'm back with another quick lesson through the Holy Spirit, the Rakakwadash. And I wanted to bring this back too. I was thinking about this image that I've used in a couple of lessons, just speaking about the worst case scenario that Jake is in his captivity. Dealing with the curses. Because Jake is hated by his enemy in his own people, right? And I kind of want to dive into that real quick because when I was putting this lesson together, I was just thinking about this, man. This shit is crazy. Let's go to this article real quick, right? So this came out back in March 22, 2025. And it says, in the headline here, it says, Chicago reigns as country's homicide capital for 13th straight year. You see that? So this is dealing with Jake. Jake is, the scriptures talk about how Jake is, his hands is, full of blood. Jake is murderers, things like that. And, a lot of this gun violence, as we saw in this intro here, going back to the title, how a horrible perfect storm fueled a 65% increase in homicides committed by kids. And, it's a lot of these young Jakes that are out here just killing each other, man. But the end all be all, again, it goes back to the curses that are written in the scriptures, right? You being hated by, your enemy and also being hated by your own people, your own, your own brother or whatnot, right? So back in this article again, this is from the centersquare.com. It says Chicago reigns as country's homicide capital for the 13th straight year. This shit crazy, man. All right, this is that black culture, this that nigga shit, man. And the Lord is not pleased with this black culture bullshit. This is why, the Lord has been taking people out of here, man. All right? But I want to read this. It says, for the 13th consecutive year, the city of Chicago once again reigned as the nation's homicide capital in 2024 with 573 murders. And this is all Jake. All right? You better believe that, man. Okay? You Israelites. It says President Ted Dabrowski views that a sickness. He says he views that as a sickness. He argues has been allowed to fester for too long, and it is a sickness. Let me get that too. That's Let's get that in Isaiah. That's the spirit, Isaiah, the first chapter, because it is a sickness. Again, tying it back to the curses that are written. This is Isaiah chapter 1, and it's Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 4, and it reads, it says, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity. It's just talking about you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics. This is what the Lord said. You're a sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, sin, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel into anger. They are gone away backwards. And everything about this culture, this nigga shit, this black culture is backwards. All right, it's not of any type of righteousness. All right, and this is why our people are going through these things on a constant basis. Right? It says, verse 5, it says, why should you be stricken anymore? You will revolt more and more. All right, and when it comes to you Israelites, all right, you Jakes out there, this is the most rebellious generation that's been on the earth, man. This generation of people, of you Israelites, again, is worse than when it was back in the flood. All right, we're talking about, total rebellion, anti-Messiah behavior. All right, no respect or regard for the Lord, no fear of the Lord, no respect to authority, nothing, man. This is the worst that our people have ever been. All right, and we see that daily. Why should you be stricken anymore? You revolt more and more. The whole head is sick. Like the guy said, it's a sickness. The Lord said that too. It's the spirit. He says the whole head is sick and the whole heart is faint, man. Jake is sick, man. All right? There's no knowledge with the majority of you niggas out there, man. The spirit ain't there, There's no type of no moral ethics, no nothing amongst our people. All right? Our people are likened unto brute beast. It says, from the sole of the foot even unto the head, there is no soundness in it. Yeah, no wisdom amongst Jake. It says, but wounds and bruises and petrifying sores. All right, those represent the curses, man. The wounds, the bruises, petrifying sores, the shit that we go through. All right. It says, but wounds, bruises, and petrifying sores, they have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Yeah, our people need healing, man. And the only healing that's going to come is through Yahweh Shem Yahushai, nothing else. You see, but that's part of it. All right, let's go back to the read here. It says President Ted Dabrowski views that as a sickness, he argues, has been allowed to fester too long. And that's why we said, hey, we coming into the time where the Lord is about to get rid of majority of you niggas, man. All right. It says, even as overall murder rates across the country dipped, Chicago also claimed the top spot for the highest murder rate per capita among big cities at 21.5 per 100,000 population, or 3 times the levels of Los Angeles and nearly 5 times of New York City. Come on, man. All right. Jake is putting up game-winning numbers out here, man. This shit is crazy. But again, it goes back, all right, to the curses, man. again, our people being in the worst case scenario ever, man. All right, this is Deuteronomy. Like I said, I was just thinking about that. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 54, and it reads, it says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his own brother. See that? It said that his eye shall be evil towards his own brother. All right, this is why, as we're reading, Chicago is leading the nation in murders and homicides. This is why you have gang wars. All right, these are all the curses, man. How Esau has pretty much programmed Jake to kill each other. You see? That's why you got to be wary of Jake, man. Matter of fact, let me get that too. Our people are treacherous, man. All right, Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 1, and it reads, it says, oh, that my head were waters and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. All right. Verse 2, it says, oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men. All right. Upright, righteous men, that I might leave my people and go from them, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. Right. You got to watch Jake, man. Jake is treacherous, deceitful, murderous, man. Right. This is why when a bunch of niggas get around each other, there's always some type of violence breaking out. Niggas getting beat up, stomped out, getting shot, somebody shooting up the party, shooting up the event, niggas scattering like roaches. You see, it's always some nigga shit amongst when Jake gets together, man. You gotta watch Jake closer, because Jake he's not in his right mind. A lot of our people are not in their right mind, man. That's just what it is. Verse 3, it says, and they bend their toes like their bow for lies. So like it says, and they bend their tongues like their bow for lies, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. For they proceed evil to evil. That's all Jake know. For it says, and they know not me, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And Jake refuses to know the Lord, man. This is why we are in these worst case scenarios, man. This is why, when it comes to our people, we leading the nation in murders, man. Right? Because when you think about Chicago, who you thinking about? You thinking about Jake. You thinking about the Israelites, man. Right? Let's read some more. All right? The scriptures don't lie, man. Again, it says, even as overall murder rates across the country dipped, Chicago also claimed the top spot for highest murder rate per capita among big cities at 21.5 per 100,000 population, or three times the levels of Los Angeles, and nearly 5 times in New York City. That's wild, man. Right? It says, quote, it means we have a real problem and we're sick. We just read that, Isaiah, the 1st chapter. It means we have a real problem and we're sick, Dabrowski told the Center Square. Until we get serious, this murder problem is going to be a drag on the city in terms of attracting people, attracting businesses, and worse, is going to keep chasing people away and chasing businesses away. Is something we have to get our hands around, right? So this is the Lord, man. All right, the Lord said that in Matthew 24 again, right? Matthew 24 in verse 12, it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So we're in a time where iniquity, transgression, sin is absolutely at its worst, man. All right. And because these things are increasing, it said the love of many shall wax cold. This is why the murder rates are climbing up. All right. More death is going out there, man. People are inhabited with demons, evil spirits. This is why these crimes are being committed, because, everything in this society is getting worse. This is the judgment of the Lord. Right? It says, let's read on some more. It says, Dabrowski adds that while Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson often talks about crime being down in the city, the truth is numbers are down across the country, just not nearly as much in Chicago. God damn, man. It says, It's true the crime is down somewhat, but it's down dramatically across the country. He said it's barely down here. You got places like Jacksonville where murders are down 50%. You got places like Baltimore, Philadelphia, and in Washington, D.C., where it's down 30 to 35%. Our murders are only down 8%. We're just part of the national wave, but we're almost not participating in that national wave. So again, they're talking about the murder rates are down, but here's the thing, right? We see clearly that society is on a decline. All right, people are not working. All right, they're barely saving money. They're barely making money. You see what I'm saying? So as a result, crime is going to get worse. People ain't gonna have nothing to lose. So as they're talking about things are decreasing, these things are only going to increase, and that's the will of the Lord. That's prophecy. All right. Again, like I said, you got to watch Jake, man. All right. It's dealing with the curses again. This is Isaiah 59, verse 1. It says, it says, behold, the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai's hand is not shortened, that it cannot say, neither his ear heavy, that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have separated between you and your power, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he would not hear. Right, and that's what happened to us. This is why we are in this scenario, in this worst case here. All right, we were the ones that separated ourselves from our power, and as a result, what happened? The curses were put upon us. We fell into the hands of our enemies. All right, our enemies, programmed us against each other. All right, going back to what's it called, the Willie Lynch letters. All right, this shit goes back to the times of slavery. But it says again, Isaiah 59:2. But your iniquities have separated between you and your power, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he would not hear. Verse 3, the point, it says, for your hands are defiled with blood. See? For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongue have muttered perverseness. Right. Jake's hands are defiled with blood, man. This article is a heavy example here. All right. Chicago reigning as the homicide capital for the 13th straight year. All right. It says, verse 4, none calleth for justice, nor any pleaded for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. And that's the culture, all right, that you niggas, embrace and brag about, man. All right, this culture that you embrace is a culture of death. Okay? There's no truth among Jake, man. Right? And what's crazy, too, you got all these Jakes practicing Islam, and with all this truth out there in Chicago, the Israelites, the word of Yahweh Shem Yahushua going out, man. All right, it's inexcusable. It says they hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. Their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hand. That's the curses, man. The acts of violence are in their hands. All right, this is the product of Jake, you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics. All right, scriptures is faithful and true. It says, their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. See? Their thoughts are the thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. Right, everywhere you go. Chicago, any other major city where Jake is at, this is what goes on. All right. It says, the way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Right. There's no peace amongst niggas, is the point. Right. And I want to touch the other side of this lesson here, dealing with Esau, because like I said, you're hated by, you're hated by your own brother, your own people, but you're hated by your own enemy too. Because I wanted to bring this out just to add in there, right? Because Esau is the devil the Bible speaks of, right? Check this out. So this is from This is from newstarget.com. It says, the headline here, it says, advisory, ex-FBI agent exposes likely ATF honeypot operation selling illegal Glock switches. You see? So here it is, right? Esau is fucking selling switches. Because that's why you hear these niggas in the music, in their songs talking about how they carrying the switches and shit like that, how they got the switch on the stick and all of that. These shits are illegal, man. Right? So you got Esau providing the weaponry. He providing the drugs in the hood, in the neighborhoods. So Esau's behind this shit too. How the hell is Jake getting these military grade weapons? How is Jake getting his hands on these pounds of these different types of substances, man? All right, so Esau, he got his hands in this shit too. You see? Can't make this up. Ex-FBI agent exposes likely ATF honeypot operation selling illegal Glock switches, man. See? Let's read a little bit, man. Let's jump down. So it says potential ATF honeypot operation uncovered. And this made me think about the lesson I did about, the people in the feds that got fired and all of that, the people that were going to start leaking secrets or something like that, the different secrets, the plans that America was doing. You see? Potential ATF honeypot operation uncovered. It says what appears to be yet another brazen attempt by federal agencies to ensnare unsuspecting Americans. Former FBI agent and federal whistleblower Kyle Seraphin has exposed a suspicious website allegedly selling illegal Glock switches, devices that convert semi-automatic pistols into fully automatic machine guns. So niggas is running around here with fucking machine guns, man. This shit is crazy, man. Niggas got literal pocket rockets, man. Niggas got machine guns on them, man. Devices that convert semi-automatic pistols into fully automatic machine guns. The site, which clumsily mimics the now defunct Polymorph 80 brand, has all the hallmarks of a classic ATF honeypot operation. A poorly constructed facade and overt focus on illegal products, and a clear intent to lure in potential buyers for prosecution. You see? It says, reading on here, it says, so these are part of the entrapments that Esau's doing, right? It says, let's jump down a little bit. It says, what is a Glock switch and why is it illegal? A Glock switch, also known as a auto sear, is a small aftermarket device that modifies a semi-automatic Glock pistol into fire in a full auto mode, effectively turning it into a machine gun. Under U.S. federal law, these devices are strictly prohibited from civilian possession due to their classification as machine guns under the National Firearms Act of 1934 and the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986, which banned new machine gun sales to civilians. So here it is. Esau's providing this shit, man. You see, you can't make this up. This is the worst case scenario. All right, your own brother hates you, and your own enemy too, and your enemy, he's the one that's funneling the drugs and the guns into the neighborhoods, right? So he can entrap you and prosecute you. This is the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. Right? So that's what I was thinking about it. As I was putting this together, I'm like, man, we got to get the hell out of here. All right? This is Psalm 10 and 8, and it reads, it says, he sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, and the secret places doeth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. The poor represents you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics. This is what he does. It says he sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, right? This is why you got the cops in the neighborhoods that try to set Jake up, that are putting the drugs and the guns in the neighborhoods, and we've been known these things, man. All right, what I'm reading here, this is nothing new here, right? Going into this article, we've been known about this for years, that Esau was providing the military guns in these neighborhoods, putting in the cocaine and the drugs and shit. All right, you see what Esau do? They had this show that used to come on back in the day called Bait Car, right? A nigga would pull up in the neighborhood where you know, an impoverished neighborhood where Jake would be at, right? Get out the car, leave the car running, knowing damn well that them Jakes was gonna go over there and steal the car. And then they steal the car, and the car got all types of cameras in there. They watching him. They shut the car down, right? Where he can't move no more, and they jump out the car and arrest him. That's what Esau do, man. But you know, this is all part of his it's all part of the system. This is what he does, man. Is the point. It says, Psalm 10 and 9, it says, he lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. This is what they do. All right? We're reading an article about how this devil, all right, is providing illegal Glock switches. All right? Come on, man. It says, he lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doeth catch the poor when he draweth him into his nets. Right? That's his different entrapments. You see? Let's go back and read a little more. It says, excuse me, it says penalties for possession include up to 10 years in federal prison per violation, fines as high as $250,000. It says additional state level charges in jurisdictions with stricter laws. It says the only exceptions are for law enforcement, military personnel, and licensed manufacturers with ATF approval. It says this. Despite this, the ATF has ramped up the enforcement targeting online sales and underground markets, and what critics argue are often overzealous stings designed to infiltrate Salakia, designed to inflate arrest statistics rather to enhance public safety. It says how ATF honeypot operations work and why they're ethically questionable. It says a honeypot operation is a law enforcement tactic where agencies create fake online platforms, websites, social media pages, or dark web marketplaces to attract individuals attempting to buy or sell illegal firearms. So again, we just read that in Psalms 10th chapter. All right, that's part of his traps, his ensnares. Right? It goes to the playbook, right? And the rest reads on. So what they were saying earlier on is that, you know, it crosses that border, that fine line between what's legal and ethical. You see what I'm saying? So the point is, Esau's behind a lot of this shit that you see. You know, even his murder stuff, you know, it came out that Esau would have these masks that look like Jake. You know, they'll ride around these cars and they'll shoot at rival gangs, and then the gang will think that it was their enemies that did it, and that would contribute to more gang wars and shit like that. So Esau is in the midst of a lot of that shit too. Don't get that twisted. All right, the setups, you know, the entrapments we're reading about, everything that we already know. All right, so again, right, that's why this picture is heavy, because, you know, Esau, you know, he's funneling both sides anyway, right? But at the same time, you're hated by your own enemy and your own people, man. That's the worst case scenario. Let's add some more scriptures, right? This is Psalm 140:1. It says, "O Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua." This is in the NLT. Psalm 140 and verse 1 in the NLT. It says, "O Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, rescue me from evil people. Protect me from those who are violent." See? Those who plot evil in their hearts and stir up trouble all day long. That's you Edomites. Okay? Their tongues sting like a snake. The venom of a viper drips from their lips. It says, "O Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, keep me out of the hands of the wicked. Protect me from those who are violent, for they are plotting against me." All right? Esau is always plotting against Jake. Verse 5, "The proud have set a trap to catch me. They have stretched out a net. They have placed traps all along the way." And that's pretty much this system that we're in America, Babylon. All right? That's why the scripture said in Micah 2:10 that this place was not our rest. All right? This place is one big snare, man. All right? So Esau got his hands all into this stuff too, is my point again. Right? Psalms 55:21, he reads, it says, "The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. You see that? So Esau is all about war against you Israelites, man. You know? Esau is always in the midst, like the scriptures say, never trust thy enemy. He's always in the midst, causing some type of havoc, man. You know? It says, cast thy burden upon the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. But thou, O power, shall bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in thee. And we're going to continue to trust in Yahweh Shem Yahushai at the end of the day. All right. But again, this is all, this all contributes to the curses that are written. All right. Again, that worst case scenario that we're in here in Babylon, America, so that's what, that's what I was just thinking about. And I pray that this quick lesson was edifying. And shalom to the next one. Shalom.